Welcome back. I hope everyone is doing well. Today I am filming this. It is Tuesday and it is the 40th day of the Omer. On the 50th day of the Omer, we know it is the Chag of Shavuos, and Shavuos is known by Chazal, by the rabbis, as Zman Matan Toratenu. It's the time of the giving of the Torah and the Zman of Kabbalas Torah, our acceptance of the Holy Torah. So I want to discuss some famous Gemaras, some famous stories about Kabbalas Torah, about the giving and the receiving of the Torah on Har Sinai. In early childhood, there's a famous song, a well-known song. It's a cute song that goes a little bit like this. Hashem gave us a present. Do you know what it was? He gave us the Torah so we could keep its laws. He asked the other nations, do you want this gift of mine? And they said, no, thank you. For Torah, there's no time. And then to Bnei Yisrael, Hashem did go. We said, Naseh v'nishma, because we love Hashem. So you probably repeat the last two lines, but we're not going to do that there. So that in that song, we say that Hashem asked the other nations, do you want this gift of mine? He went around to the other nations and said, do you want the Torah? Do you want the Torah? Do you want the Torah? They all said no. What's the reason given in the song? That they have no time for that. That's not correct, right? And then they came to Bnei Yisrael, and Bnei Yisrael said, Naseh v'nishma. So we're going to understand the story in a little bit of the song in a little bit of a different light. Let's look at the sources. So first of all, the Gemara alludes to this fact. It says it clearly in the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, but alludes to the actual back and forth between the nations and Bnei Yisrael. That's only alluded to in the Gemara. It is stated clearly in the second source, in the Mechilta. So the Gemara is darshaning, it's expounding in the first source, some psukim at the very end of the Torah, in Parshas Vizeos Habracha. In the last two lines where it's underlined, it says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Milamed, this teaches, these psukim teach, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu went from Paran and went from Seir. Seir is the home of Esav, and Paran is the home of Yishmael. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan Milamed teaches Shechazira HaKadosh Baruch Hu al kol umma v'lashon v'lo kiblua. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu went to every single nation, to every different language, every different lashon, every different tongue, but every different nation, every different people, ad Shabbat Eitzel Yisrael, until he came to the Jewish people, v'kiblua, and the Jews accepted the Torah. So first he went to the other nations, and then he asked the Jews, and they all rejected the Torah, and the Jewish people accepted the Torah. So now if you look in the Mechilta de Rabbi Yishmael, in Parashas Yisro, in the second source, says, Nigla al b'nei Esav harasha v'amar lehem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu appeared to the b'nei Esav, to the children of Esav, harasha, the evil Esav, v'amar lehem, mekablim atem aleichem es ha-Torah. Do you guys want to accept the Torah? Amrulo, they, the Bnei Esav, respond, Maksiv Bey, what's written in your Torah? Amar Lahem, you know what? We have a law called Lo Tirtzach, you're not allowed to murder. Amrulo, they said back, no. Zui Yerusha Shehorishanu Avinu, this is our Yerusha. This is what we've gotten, this is what we've inherited from our father, that you, Esav, the Bnei Esav, you live by the sword. How could we accept the Torah? That's impossible. That's impossible for us. So he asks Esav, Esav rejects the Torah. Then he appears, Nigla al Bnei Ammon Moav. Then he comes to Bnei Ammon and Moav. Amar Lahem, he says, Mikablim atem es ha-Torah. Do you want to accept the Torah? Amrulo, they said, Maksivbe, the same exact question as the Bnei Esav asked. They said, what's written in your Torah? Amar Lahem, he says to them, Lo tinaf, do not commit adultery. And they said, oh no, that's in our blood. That's running through our veins. We have to commit adultery. We can't accept the Torah. We know that Ammon and Moab, those nations actually came from Lot's daughters, right? Lot's daughters being with Lot. And Moab means from father. Right? That was the union of that. Moab was a baby that was born from the union of his of Lot and his daughter. So Lot was the father and grandfather of Moab. So God is really over 2, strike 2. Esav didn't accept the Torah, then Ammon and Moab don't accept the Torah. So let's try Nigla al Bnei Yishmael. Let's go to the Bnei Yishmael. Amar Lahem, he says to them, Mikablim atem aleichem es ha-Torah. Do you want to accept the Torah? Amrulo, they said to Maksibe, what's written in your Torah? We got to see. We're not sure we're going to accept it. Let's understand what's written in the Torah first. Amar Lahem, he says to them, Al Tignov, you're not allowed to steal. Amrulo, Amru, they said to him, Bezu bracha nisbarach avenu. This is the bracha that our father gave us, right? That we're going to be dichsiv v'hu yeh pera adam. You're like a wild man. You're going to be able to take and whatever you want. The Mishnah is the Medrash is saying, right? It's once again, that's who we are. We are ganavim. We're thieves, right? So we can't accept the Torah, and just like Ammon and Moab and Bnei Esa before them, they also reject the Torah. Last line, Uchishaba Eitzel Yisrael. However, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and approaches Bnei Yisrael, Pischu Kulam Piyan v'Amru, they all open their mouths and they say, Kol Asher Diber Hashem, everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Naaseh v'Nishma. We will do and we will listen. First they accept Naaseh v'Nishma. We don't even need to hear about it. We'll do it. Yeah, we're all in. We're all in. Nishma, then we will come and learn. So first of all, there are a couple of questions that we can ask on this midrash. There are a lot of questions. We're going to deal just with probably 2 or 3. So first of all the nations, they're offered the Torah, and then ultimately they refuse the Torah. And the real question is, how could they reject the Torah? We know we have a principle in Halakha in Torah that non-Jews don't have to keep all 613 mitzvos, but they have to keep what we call the Sheva mitzvos b'nei Noach. They have to keep the 7 Noahide mitzvos, and within those 7 are don't steal, don't murder, and don't commit adultery. Right? So if they had to observe them anyway, right? The civilization, for the world to exist, people need to be ethical and moral. You can't be murdering and stealing, right? So ultimately they were bound by these mitzvos anyway. So on what right are they able to reject the Torah and refuse its acceptance? So the Kli Chemda has on his drasha on in Parshas Devarim, actually, he writes that if you look closely at Aseres HaDibros, and when you read it, we're going to read it next week, and whenever you look, right? You look, Tirtzach, Lo Tinaf, Anochi, Kabir as Avicha ve'asimecha, all 10 of the commandments are all given to us in the singular, in the Lashon of Yachid. And it's as if Chazal were saying, as if the entire nation is being addressed as one person, right? So yes, Mahler is not allowed to steal, and Mahler needs to keep Shabbos, right? But the idea is to impress upon the Jewish people, Am Yisrael, that you know what? The profound lesson of Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh B'Zeh, that each and every single Jewish person is responsible for one another. So it's not only that I have to make sure that Shabbos is kept and and parents are honored and people don't steal, but I need to make sure that those around me, I have to take responsibility for the other Jews. And the Torah is clearly written in the language of Yachid, in the singular. Why the Kli Chemda says? To teach me that we're all one Jewish people, one nation. The Jewish people are all one. And therefore, when Hashem asks the other nations to accept the Torah, he explains that he's saying you need to accept the Torah with this added dimension that each person, each of the Bnei Esa for each other, and the Bnei Ammon for each other, take responsibility. And they rejected that. They said, you know what, even though perhaps there could be individuals in Yishmael that don't commit adultery, and Esav that don't murder, you know what? They were basically saying it was beyond our spiritual capacity or beyond our spiritual capabilities to accept responsibility for one another's actions. And that's how the Kli Chemda answers that question of why is it or how was it that they could ultimately reject the Torah when really in essence they need to keep these mitzvos anyway. So they do need to keep the mitzvos. They themselves need to keep the mitzvos. Why do they reject it? According to the Kli Chemda, they rejected it because acceptance of the Torah, when the Jews accepted the Torah, they said, you know what, we're going to take responsibility for the others as well. So what's amazing is the question, we're the Am HaNivchar, we're the chosen nation, we're the Mamlechet Kohanim V'Goy Kadosh, and we're Am Segula, a treasured nation, and that's how we refer to ourselves, and sometimes that's how others refer to ourselves, and that could be the reason why we were on the receiving end of much anti-Semitism during our history. But if you look at the Medrash and you read the Medrash, you have to be able to ask the question. You have to ask the question, wait a minute. Ultimately, really, it could have been that God wanted Esav to have the Torah. Okay. And Esav was first choice. And then Ammon and Moab were second choice. And then according to the Medrash, Yishmael was the third choice to accept the Torah. And all of a sudden, us, right? I'm the fourth choice? What do you mean? How can we say we're the chosen nation? You could say we're the chosen. We're the ones who did the choosing. But to say, to fantasize that Hashem loves us and he always was looking out for us and this and that, according to the Medrash, it doesn't seem to work. So how can we I guess, mesh these two ideas? That really we are the Am HaNivchar, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu always loved us and always longed to have this wonderful relationship with Am Yisrael, with the Jewish people. But how do we reconcile this with the Medrash that we just read? That seems like we were batted fourth in the order of the people that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to give the Torah to. So the Vilna Gaon has a fabulous understanding of a Gemara in Bechoros. Okay, the Gemara has Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya. Yehoshua ben Chananya was first of all was the Rebbe of Rabbi Akiva. He lived during the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. I think the first generation after the destruction, after Churban Bayis Sheni, and he was one of the real Torah giants that ever lived. And Yehoshua had to go to Rome, and while he was summoned to Rome, he somehow got into these philosophical debates with what the Gemara calls the people of Athens, the men of Athens, and these were philosophers. They were brilliant, very, very wise people. And somehow we got into these either debates or discussions and conversations, and they were really challenging Rabbi Yehoshua. So the Gemara in Bechoros and Avches has a couple of the cases that, I guess a couple of these conversations, we'll call them. And here in the third source is one of them. Amar Lei. The men of Athens, they asked Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya, Ho Gavra. There was a man, the Azil Uboy Isisa. There was a man who wanted to marry a woman, who wanted to Isisa is a woman, to find a wife. Velo Yahavu Lei. But the family wouldn't give their daughter to the boy, to this man. So my Chazile. So the men of Athens asked Yehoshua, my Chazile, what should he do? What should this guy who's looking to get married, what should he do? The Azul Hecha de Madlumine? Should he try to get a better girl? Meaning a girl of greater either economic status or social status, whatever better means in their world. Would it be logical? Would it be rational for him now to go and look for a better girl? Of course not, right? So that was the question. That was the question that was offered to Rabbi Yehoshua. It seems more like a statement that was offered to Rabbi Yehoshua. So what did Rabbi Yehoshua do? Shakal sichsa. He takes a peg, ditza d'lititoi. This is in the third source, and he puts it in the wall. Tries to get this peg in the wall, right, like a thumbtack. Lo a'al. Gemara says when he tried to put it in the wall, lo a'al, it didn't go in. So what did he do? Ilui. He looks for a higher part on the wall, and then it enters. It goes in. Amar. So he says back to the men of Athens, Hainami Misra mi bas mazle. He says, you know what? Maybe this girl, if she looks better, she looks higher up on the wall or higher up in the ladder, right? So then she might be destined, her mazel, bas mazle. She might be a daughter of mazel in that case. What in the world is this Gemara talking about? Is it a shidduch Gemara? What are we supposed to believe? What are we supposed to understand? So normal people, regular people, would probably just throw up their hands and have no clue what the Gemara is really getting to. But thankfully, we have the Vilna Gaon, and the Vilna Gaon gives a fascinating, fabulous explanation of this Gemara. So if you look in actually, I didn't put down the Vilna Gaon, but this is basically what he says. Okay, the idea. The Gemara is really all about, according to the Vilna Gaon, was really a conversation to address the question of why the Torah was only offered to Bnei Yisrael after the other nations. The elders of Athens, they're arguing that Bnei Yisrael was the least worthy nation. Yehoshua ben Chananya brings a counter analogy of the peg in the wall, and his point, amazingly, was that the Torah was really ultimately, what's the Torah there for? It's intended to refine its recipients. It's to make us better people. It's to recalibrate us, to refine us, to make us more special and fix us. Therefore, just as the peg was first placed at the weakest point of the wall, right? Similarly, the Torah, the Gra says, was offered first to the weakest nations, those nations who needed it most. First, we're going to go to Esav. They're murderers, right? However, the peg couldn't fit at the bottom. They didn't want it. They rejected it. It wasn't going to be a match. That's to say that the wall at its weakest point, it wasn't capable of holding the peg. The people weren't capable of holding the Torah. It needed to be placed on firmer ground, on a place, let's say, higher up on the wall. In the same way, it was only Am Yisrael, it's only Knesset Yisrael, which had really ultimately the moral capability to accept the Torah. The Torah would have been too hard. It couldn't be accepted by Esav. It couldn't be accepted by Yishmael. Maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to give it to them, but it wasn't going to be fit. So just as he said, yeah, I'm going to start with the bottom. The bottom doesn't necessarily mean the best. The bottom means the people that need it the most. And you could answer with this idea of the Gra. I think you could answer another question. It seems a little bit unfair, right? Meaning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is almost setting them up. Why didn't HaKadosh Baruch Hu say, when they asked Mak Sivbe, what's written in the Torah? Why did they just answer, Mezuzah is written in the Torah? This is so easy, right? There's a mitzvah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur. That's a great mitzvah. There's a mitzvah to have Malava Malka, to eat 3 meals on Shabbat. Those are easier mitzvahs. A Jew could do those mitzvahs well. Anybody could do those mitzvahs well. So why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu seem to go to their Achilles and seem to hit them where it was most difficult for them, right? Isn't God just setting them up? No. Ultimately, from the Gra's explanation, the Torah is there to refine the people that accept the Torah. So therefore, he says, if I go to your weakest point, right? If I go to your weakest point, then what? Then what? And you accept it? Oh, then I know it's for you. The Jews didn't even ask the question, right? But say, you know what? No, it's not going to help us. We're too bad. So I think that's an answer to that question as well, which should bother you. God seems to be like setting Esav up, setting Yishmael up. But really, no. The goal of the Torah is to refine its recipients, and that's why he gave them something that was going to really be a difficult mitzvah for them. Okay, let's now switch to perhaps the most famous Gemara that addresses the Kabbalah Satorah, and that is the Gemara on Daf Peiches Amud Aleph. The Gemara is, and we know this Gemara. We know at least what Chazal, so you might not have seen inside. But the pasuk, the Gemara is building on the pasuk, and the pasuk is the fourth source. Vayotzi Moshe es ha'am likras Elokim. This is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Moshe is taking the nation out likrat Elokim, to go to Har Sinai to greet HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to approach HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Min ha'machane, they're leaving the machane. Vayit yatzvu b'tachtit hahar, and they are standing. Vayit yatzvu b'tachtit hahar. Where are they standing? At the foot of the mountain. So Rashi says that b'tachtit, pashut pshat, regular pshat of the pasuk, is that they were standing at the bottom, or at the regalim, the legs of the mountain. But then he says that is pshat. But why would I use the word? Just say biraglei hahar. Why does the pasuk need to say betachtit? Tachat means underneath. So what is HaKadosh Baruch Hu getting at? What's the Torah hinting at when it says that they sat betachtit hahar, at the foot of the mountain, using the word under the mountain? So here we go. Let's look in the Gemara. Vayitatzu betachtit hahar, that they stood at the foot of, or literally in the bottom of the mountain. Amar Rabbi Avdimi bar Chama bar Chasa. Melame, this teaches Shekafa HaKadosh Baruch Hu Aleim Es Hahar Kigigis, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu covered them with the mountain. He lifted up the mountain. We detached the mountain from the ground, and then he held the mountain over the Jewish people's heads. Right? Saying what? V'amar lehem, and he said to them, Imatem mekabim haTorah mutav. If you accept the Torah, mutav, great. V'im lav, but if you don't, sham tehei kviraschem. Over there will be your burial place. That's where you're going to. That's where ultimately you're going to be buried. So Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov. Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov says, Mikan, from here, from this little chazal, from this statement of Rav Avdimi, Modar Rabba Araisa. It's like there's a major caveat, there's a substantial caveat with the Jewish people's acceptance of the Torah. Why? Because it seemed like it was coerced. It seems like they were forced to accept the Torah. Right? There's a mountain over Am Yisrael's head. Accept the Torah or else you're going to die. What? Of course they're going to accept the Torah. Of course they're going to accept the Torah. So here we go. So Amar Rava, Af al Pichein, even though Hadur Kablu, even though so Afal Pichein Hadur Kablu Mechasheosh. Yes. So Rava, and I think Rashi says this should be Rabba. Okay, Rabba says that yeah, even though there was something wrong because it seemed like it was a forced. It was a forced conversion, right? They had to accept the Torah, else they were going to die. So it shouldn't really hold water. It shouldn't hold weight. It shouldn't be okay. It shouldn't be acceptable. No, don't worry about it. Why? Because Kablua b'mei Achashverosh. Because later on at the times of Achashverosh, the pasuk says, Kimu v'kiblu ha-Yehudim. Right? The Jewish people established and accepted. And what does the Gemara say? What does it mean that they established and accepted? Kimu, they established in the days of Achashverosh, Masha Kiblu Kvar, that which they had already accepted in the days of Moshe Rabbeinu. So in the times of Achashverosh, that was when we accepted the Torah of our own choice and of our own volition. So there are questions here. Tosfos asks this question. We need to know, right? Why were they a force? Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu feel that they needed to be forced to accept the Torah, right? We know they said Na'aseh v'nishma. That seems great. That's going to be Tosfos' question. But there was this aspect of Na'aseh v'nishma. Oh, we're going to accept it. Even if they were going to accept it, why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu still feel it necessary to have this forced, this coercive experience of holding the mountain over their head? What was the purpose to do that? So let's look. We're going to have a couple of answers, a couple of beautiful answers. So look at Tosfos. Tosfos is the first source on the second page. Kaf aleim har kegigis, right? That the Kodesh Baruch Hu held it over like a vat. Rashi says it was almost like a tube or like a bottle that was there to hold sheichar. Sheichar is beer. So now we have a new minhag. I don't know why we don't have this minhag. Right? We know they have a minhag to eat dairy on Shavuos. On Shavuos there should be a minhag. Everyone's got to have a cold beer. Everyone should have a beer, right? Because the gigis, Rashi says, was this thing that would hold beer. So Rashi says, Tosfos says, asking this question, even though the Jewish people had already been makdim, they already said Na'aseh v'nishma. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu need to force the mountain on top of their head? HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Shema Yuchozrim. Perhaps they were going to recant and step away and feel bad that they were going to not want to accept the Torah. Right? And what was Tosfos saying? Tosfos was basically saying that they were that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was nervous that the Jewish people, out of fear, would back out of their acceptance of the Torah. After the entire experience of the fire and the smoke and the shofar, the loud noises, right? That they were going to be so scared. They said, no, we don't want this. This God is like an angry God. It's an intimidating God. I don't want to be part of this. So yeah, they were excited. But then when the whole experience of our Sinai happened, Kodesh Baruch Hu was nervous that they were going to back out, and therefore, he felt it necessary that he needed to force the Jews to accept the Torah. The Medrash Tanchuma in Parshas Noach says another answer. He says, and this is also a well-known answer, that Na'aseh v'nishma was only on Torah shebichtav. It was only on the written Torah. Right, that we were going to accept the 24 books of Tanakh, everything, the Chumash, the Torah, all of the Nevi'im, and the Ketuvim as Sefer Eov and Tehillim, and the Megillah, Ezra, Nehemiah, Daniel, Mishlei, all those, that we were accepting that. But the people were much more reluctant to accept Torah Sheba'al Peh, all the Midrashim and the Mishnah, the Gemara, the entire corpus of the oral Torah. That's much more difficult. It's harder to grasp. It takes much, much longer to learn, to master. And ultimately, our Nasa V'Nishma was on Torah Shebichtav, but we also needed to accept Torah Shebal Peh. The Torah Shebal Peh was that's why we were a little bit reluctant. So Kadosh Baruch Hu forced our hand, as it were, and said, "Oh, you better accept the Torah Shebal Peh as well." The Maral has a third answer, and the Maral explains that the world exists because of the Torah. We know that Rashi says, "Vayi erev vayi boker yom hashishi." Right? It doesn't say Yom Shishi, the Friday, that it was night and it was day during in Parshas Bereishis when he's creating the world. At the end of every day, it says Vayerev vayi boker Yom Sheni, Vayerev vayi boker Yom Revi'i. On Friday, this is how we start Kiddush Friday night. It says Vayerev vayi boker Yom Hashishi. If you want to be symmetrical or you want to go the same way as it doesn't say Ha Revi'i, Ha Sheni, right? But it says Hashishi. Why is it the fifth day? So the Hey is there to allude to the 5 books of Moses, to the Chamisha Chumshei Torah. Explain, and so with this, right, that the Torah, if the Jews would not have accepted the Torah, Rashi writes, that the world would have gone back, would have reverted to Tohu Vavohu, to nothingness, to emptiness, to just a wild world. So the Maral explains the need for the coercive threat really as follows. The world needs Torah. And if the Torah isn't accepted, the world returns to Tohu Vavohu. And if Am Yisrael's acceptance was optional, right, though praiseworthy, the Nasa V'Nishma is optional. Oh, we're choosing to accept the Torah. Though that's amazing and wonderful and amazing and praiseworthy, it would have seemed to the world as an indispensable component of the world's existence had been left to chance. No. The Torah couldn't be, oh yes, we got lucky, they accepted the Torah. No, the Torah is indispensable for the running of the world, for the world to exist. And so in order to dispel the notion that that just it was left up to chance, and thank God, Baruch Hashem, the Jews accepted the Torah, Hashem forced his hand on the Jewish people. Basically saying that the Torah is so important. I'm going to force you to do it. Almost, this is not what the Maral is saying, but in a very immature way, it's almost when a parent forces it may look scary, but a kid's not brushing his teeth. So the parent is going to force to brush the teeth. He's going to force the kid to do homework. He's going to force the kid to take medicine, right? Or pull him away from stopping from playing video games or whatever is going on. It's so important and almost existential to the kid's development or the world's existence that even though it looks scary, it might not look nice. I'm going to force my hand. I'm going to do it. You have to do it because it's too important. That's I guess the next answer. Then we have another answer that is more. It's like a Hasidic idea, but sometimes you have such a good buy. Sometimes you go to a store, and we were once in Arizona at this weird place, and they sold Uggs. Uggs, I guess, are expensive shoes. And they were selling Uggs for very, very cheap, like these Ugg boots you could get for $24 or something like that. And my wife was like, "You have to get them. You can't not get them. You have to get them, right?" It's almost like it was such a good, you can't pass it up, right? So it's almost like it seems like you're being coerced. It seems like I'm being forced. It's such an overwhelmingly good deal, right? So it's not that he actually did it, but that's symbolic. According to that, it's symbolic. He didn't really force us, but it was almost such an amazing, the Torah. All I have to do is daven 3 times a day with a minyan and wear tzitzis, fast a couple of days. Awesome. For the Torah? Of course I would do that. That's an amazing, amazing thing. But I saw in the Minchas Osher, he offers another idea. That there could be, that I think is also a beautiful, beautiful idea. Anyway, take yourselves back to the mind frame of one of the Jews who left Mitzrayim. It says, these people have, over the course of the Eser Makos, the 10 plagues, and then there's Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea, where Hashem really suspends the laws of nature. And what happens ultimately is that he sees, right, they're about to get killed, and they're saved, and they are seeing the fulfillment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's assurance and promise that they will leave Egypt with great wealth. The Gemara in Bechoros tells us that each Jew, I just saw this in his Sefer, I didn't know this Gemara, but that each Jew left Egypt with no less than 90 donkeys. 90 donkeys that were loaded with like the spoils of Egypt. Even greater were the riches, right? Were all the stuff that they took from all the horsemen, from all the horses and chariots of the Egyptians that were killed in the Yam Suf, right? And then after the Yam Suf, they're traveling and they're given this heavenly food, this man, and they're given these quails to eat that are sent by heavenly sent by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were led by clouds of glory. They were at night. They were led by the fire. Their clothing miraculously grew, and it miraculously never was worn out, and it was miraculously laundered by the Ananei HaKavod. So you could just imagine having witnessed all of these miracles that the nation who left Egypt that they experienced, right, which was constantly surrounding them. Was it any wonder they willingly agreed to accept the Torah, right? Who would have refused? They were infatuated with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. They loved the Kadosh Baruch Hu, right? So they were in this intimate like rendezvous with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Of course, they're not going to pass up. But the Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to say that these times are good right now, and everything's awesome, and we're in the top. We're the top of the world. But for this very reason, it was actually necessary, Rav Asher Weiss writes, to hold the mountain over their heads. The Jewish people had to realize that their acceptance of Torah, impacted them. It wasn't just, they weren't accepting the Torah just as, oh, we're going to be like nobles and accept the Torah. But it was also about subjugation and subservience to God and all of his mitzvos at all times, under all circumstances, right? The Jews, as we know, were destined to endure thousands of years of hardship and Holocaust and sacrifice for the sake of Torah. Right? It wasn't just going to be hunky-dory. It wasn't just going to be all, joy and parties and Kriyas Yamsuf and all that. Right? Holding the mountain over their heads was there to show them their acceptance of the Torah has to be absolute, and it has to be completely uncompromising. And he quotes an amazing Gemara. He quotes a Gemara in Yevamos. The Gemara in Yevamos says that when a non-Jew converts into an Eved Kanani, to be an Eved, right? A non-Jew converts to become a slave. He goes into a mikvah like all converts go into a mikvah, right? Like any other convert. However, when he comes out of the water, they would put a bucket of cement, and they would balance this bucket of cement on this newly converted slave's head to immediately signify his new status as a slave, right? He is now a property, or he has to subjugate himself to his master. And Rav Asher Weiss says the same was true at Har Sinai. The same, not cement, but a mountain, right? That they were converted, and now they were being converted as God's chosen nation. And it wasn't all balloons and parties and this and that. There was actually real subjugation, because ultimately you need to. There's going to be times when we're flying high, and there are going to be times of times when we're laying low, and we're not going to be able to see the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu so clearly. However, and if we look on the last source in the Mechilta, most of all the 5 or 6 explanations of HaKadosh Baruch Hu forcing the Jewish people to accept the Torah were all had a negative connotation. However, there is a Mechilta, there's another Mechilta, another Medrash that says Melabed Shenit Lashahar Mimkomo. That it teaches, right, quoting the pasuk in Betachti Tahar, teaches that HaKadosh Baruch Hu detached the mountain from its place. The Kirva Amdu Tachasar, Bnei Yisrael approached and came close and were standing at the foot of the mountain. As it says, Vatikruvun v'tamdun Tachasahar. They stood there. And then he quotes, the Mechilta quotes a pasuk from Shir HaShirim, Aleyem Mifurash, about them, about the Jewish people at Har Sinai. The pasuk says, Yonasi b'chagvei hasela. My dove is in the cleft of the rock. My dove, referring to the Jewish people, right? My dove here, the Jewish people, are within the cleft of the rock. What's the rock? The rock here is the mountain. The Mechilta is the Medrash is saying, right? So this Medrash is saying that, you know what? No. Imagine you're in the midbar and there's this oppressive heat, and you're in a place of snakes and scorpions, and it's dry land, and you're just traveling and walking and this and that. Who can concentrate on hearing Moshe speaking? Or it's that you're in such a distress, such a horrible situation, right? So sensing the state of the Jewish people, the Medrash is saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu lifted the mountain over them to provide shade and shelter and protection and love. Love is being protected by finding shelter within the cleft of the rock. Here, the cleft of the rock is not some like intimidating figure, accept the Torah or not. No. The rock being held is in the cleft of the rock. It's to show the love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had for the Jewish people. Just another view of the Medrash. Lastly, we're going to finish with one word and with one idea. This idea I heard from Rabbi J.J. Schachter a long, long time ago. The mountain is compared to a gigas. A gigas is this, as we said, is a vat or something that's arched, and it's this huge vessel, this tub or tank, and it's really for brewing beer, as we said. And it's a dome. And it gives the impression that the Jews, right, were that they weren't just under the mountain, but rather they were within. They were inside the mountain. They were surrounded at all sides by the mountain. And here he says, based on this, that they were inside the mountain. Not that it was only over their heads, but the fact that it's like a vat, a gigas, not just the mountains over their head. A gigas means something that you're gonna put in the barrel, you're gonna put in the vat, you're gonna put in this tank, right? They were inside. He says an amazing thing. He says the Jews were inside it. He says, imagine trying to kill a fly. Right? There's like now we can give this shiur on Sukkos, right? Imagine trying to kill a fly, not by hitting it, just smacking at the fly, but you're trapping the fly inside a glass. So what's going to happen? It's going to live for a while. But soon it's going to tire. Soon it's going to die. And so too the Jewish people. The Gemara said, you better accept the Torah, or where are you going to die? Sham tehei kavuraschem. Over there. What do you mean over there you're going to die? It should have said, you're going to die over here. I'm going to kill you right now. The mountain's going to fall, and you're going to die right here. What in the world does it mean over there you're going to die? He says no. He says what's going to happen, that just like if don't accept the Torah. Don't accept the Torah. And if you don't accept the Torah, so you know what's going to happen? You're going to live life, but it's not going to be a real life, right? You're going to die out just like everybody else, just like the Chiti died out, and the Yavusi, and the Romans, and the Greeks, and the Egyptians. You're going to disappear just like everyone else. But if you accept the Torah assures the nitzchias of the Jewish people, the eternity of the Jewish people, right? You're creating, sustaining, a nurturing institution, a Torah institution, which is assuring the future of the Jewish people. And J.D. Schachter explains that that's the lashon of sham tehei kavuraschem. You're in this gigit. This gigit is like this. The fly could fly around for a little bit, but over time it's going to catch up. Over time it's going to die. There's not going to be enough oxygen, and that's the same thing here with the imagery of the gigit and the language of visham tehei kavuraschem. Everyone should have a wonderful, wonderful Shavuos, a real Zman of Kabbalas Torah. Last thing, as I'm looking in my notes, in davening on Shavuos, we say Zman Matan Toratenu. Why don't we say Zman Kabbalas? It's the time that we were accepted the Torah. What do you mean the Zman of the giving of the Torah? So you could argue that what we saw in this Gemara, I should have mentioned it earlier. When we saw the Gemara, it's, what are you talking about? The fact that the Jews were forced to receive the Torah, that is like that's a caveat in their acceptance of the Torah. How? Because they were forced, right? So it's a little bit of a questionable acceptance of the Torah. That's why we had to wait till Purim, till the times of Achashverosh. Kimu v'kimelu la Yehudim. So you could make a case that in davening we say Zman Matan Toratenu, because at Shavuos, on Shavuos, you have this little bit of an argument that the acceptance of the Torah wasn't really the real acceptance of the Torah that it necessarily should have been. Don't like I shouldn't have concluded on that little bit of a negative understanding, but we will have to do it. Everyone should have a wonderful acceptance of the Torah. I think the Gemara, the Shla writes that it's a Yom Hadin. It's a Yom Hadin of Torah. How much Torah we learn. That's our Yom Hadin on Shavuos. So we should buckle down and we should learn extra leading up to Shavuos as well as on Shavuos. And the Torah, more than anything, we should feel v'harev now. We should feel the enjoyment of learning Torah every time we open a sefer, listen to a shiur, or watch a shiur on YouTube. Everyone have a great day and a great Yom Tov. Bye-bye.